All right, and we are live back with the Andre Duke Show with Carter Smith. Carter, how we doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. It's been crazy couple weeks, obviously. Just been really busy with summer ending and everything going on. Kids getting ready to go back to school, stuff like that. My daughter turns 7 on Wednesday, so gonna have a little birthday dinner with her Wednesday evening. But other than that, man, it's been good. Just been grinding and trying to get ready for the season to start.
Yeah, well, we were actually planning on going tomorrow. We've been off for a little bit, and it just seems like the gift of the news cycle keeps on giving here on the Notre Dame front and on the Michigan Wolverine front.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's obviously lots going on right now with teams getting into fall camp. Week 1 wrapped up last week, and lot to talk about there for Notre Dame and every program around the country, pretty much. And then the NCAA dropped some accidentally leaked some information allegedly about kind of what's going on with the Michigan program and things like that. And so just a lot to talk about. So I wanted to hop on tonight instead of pushing it to tomorrow and get some stuff out there and just talk about it a little bit. Obviously, as the thumbnail and the title says, we're going to discuss everything going on with the Michigan Wolverines. But I'd like to start off and just jump into kind of a Notre Dame update and talk a little Notre Dame football to start, kind of the opposite of what we normally do. But before we do that, man, how have you been past couple weeks? What's been going on?
Been good, man. Been good. Just as your DMs and Twitter would follow the. I've been following recruiting really closely, so
Yeah.
we're gonna dive into a little bit of that a little later. But I do believe we have a good show planned for today, and I just been out and about and getting
Yeah,
ready for
man.
the season. Getting
Yeah.
ready for the
So
season.
we got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, there's been a lot going on with fall camp starting, and just a little show update for people watching and people that follow us. We're planning to bump this up to at least 2 times a week right now as we get ready for the season. Probably Mondays and Wednesday evenings, and then as the season progresses, we might add more days and things like that. Just really Wednesday, kind of talk about the upcoming games, kind of the slate of college football, maybe a little NFL, things like that. And then Mondays, just kind of recap the previous weekend and everything like that. But let's jump into some Notre Dame stuff, man, and talk a little bit about the Fighting Irish and kind of expectations for this year, updates from fall camp with some of the things that have gone on. And then we'll hit a little bit on the recruiting because there has been some rumblings in recruiting that I know we want to talk on. Number one thing, man, Notre Dame, USA Today released their preseason top 25 poll. Notre Dame lands at number 7. You think that's too high or too low?
Well, when it comes to the preseason poll, I mean it's USA Today. I think as long as you're in the top 12, I don't see a big issue. It's really hard to adjust the rankings. I mean, going off of last year and what they have coming back. I don't think 7 is disrespectful, but I don't think it's overzealous. I think it's just right, and they have room for improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was a pretty good ranking, honestly. You look at the schools that are above them. You got Georgia at 1, Ohio State 2, Oregon 3, Texas, Alabama, and Ole Miss wrap up the top 6. I have no issue with any of those 6 programs being ranked ahead of Notre Dame right now. Obviously, Notre Dame has huge question marks at quarterback, what Riley Leonard is going to be, wide receiver, offensive line, and things like that. Offensive line should be solid, but obviously there's some news on that front. And the defense should be solid as well. Lost a linebacker for the season, so that's never good. But everybody ahead of them either has an established quarterback or one of the best rosters in college football. So I don't have an issue with that. I think, and schools below them, just wrapping out the top 10, you have Michigan at number 8 with all they lost last year, everything going on there. Don't think that's a bad ranking. Penn State at 9. Again, they bring back a lot of talent. And then Florida State at 10. I think that's a good, solid top 10, probably right around what I would expect. So no, I thought it was a pretty decent ranking. Obviously, it's a preseason poll. It means pretty much nothing. None of this matters. A lot of those teams in the top 10 will not be in the top 10 at the end of the year. Probably at least one of those teams in the top 10 will even be unranked at the end of the year. So, I mean, statistically, that's just how it goes. But I didn't see any real shockers. I think Missouri at number 11 is interesting, but they have a lot of hype right now. Other than that, yeah, go ahead.
Well, when it comes to that, going throughout the season, it is a war of attrition. It is, keeping guys healthy and trying to do everything of that sort. So, like with Notre Dame coming into fall camp, they've lost 2 guys already for the year. So we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I agree. And then, for the number 7 team in the country, obviously going to be led by none other than transfer quarterback from Duke, Riley Leonard, who obviously we've talked at length about this offseason with the injuries that he sustained, the 2 surgeries he had to have on that foot and ankle. But he's back. He's throwing. He's participating in fall camp. He obviously missed the entire spring. So kind of trying to catch up. He took, as they said, he took as many mental reps as he could all spring. So hopefully that paid off. Obviously learning a new system with Mike Denbrock, who's a first-year offensive coordinator, and Riley Leonard being a transfer. They're both first year at Notre Dame. So far what I've heard coming out of camp is he was kind of what they expected him to be or what they saw at Duke. He didn't wow you. He wasn't perfect. But he didn't disappoint you either. He wasn't making terrible mistakes. He didn't turn over the ball much at all or have turnover-worthy throws even. Had a couple really nice deep balls and a couple really nice throws, but also missed a couple really open receivers, missed a couple throws that he'd like to have back. So overall, he didn't wow you, but he didn't disappoint you either, which is kind of what I've said I think Riley Leonard is going to be. And you're going to want to lean on the running game and lean on some of those other playmakers you have around him to kind of elevate him and use hopefully Mike Denbrock's system to elevate his level of play above what he was at Duke. It's kind of what you expect. It was his first week of practice at Notre Dame. He hadn't really taken reps until now. Accuracy issues, miscommunication, all that's pretty expected, especially for somebody that missed the spring pretty much. And it's early on in fall camp. So you got time to fix that. And hopefully with coaching and everything like that, you can elevate him. But just overall heard good things, really excited for him. It sounds like he's healthy, which, as I said, is the biggest issue. He needs to just stay healthy. If he can stay healthy, he'll be a serviceable quarterback.
Well, and a lot of that being said, it's, really, really early in the process in fall camp. So I'm not freaking out when it comes to the reports. I mean, you're going to have all kinds of reports every single day. Somebody always, well, he missed this throw or missed that throw. So I think as long as there's no major setbacks in fall camp when it comes to Riley Leonard, I think everything will be okay.
Yeah, I agree. And the kind of the way I think the coaches and at least what I've heard, people are looking at it is they're expecting this offense to take time to get up to the level they expect it to get to. So it's not going to be game one, all cylinders firing. I think they're hoping to go into Texas A&M with a really good defense, one of the best defenses in the country, lean on that in the running game, hopefully escape that game with a win. And then by the time you get to November, where it's the meat of your schedule, you can have that offense humming at a championship level. So that's kind of what I'm expecting from this offense. Obviously, one of the major issues with all of this is what you can't have is what happened here in the first week of camp, and you can't have major injuries that are going to set your offense back, or especially at positions where you have question marks or you don't have quite the depth that you think you do, or at least their young depth. And obviously, word came out that offensive tackle Charles Jagisha He's going to be out for the season with a torn pectoral muscle. Really huge blow to the offensive line. A 4-star kid out of Illinois who really was expected to come in and start that left tackle role, taking over for Joe Alt, who was obviously a top 5 pick in the NFL. That's a huge role to step into, protecting Riley Leonard's backside. Really a major loss. The interior of that offensive line seems pretty solid. The question marks for me were at the tackle positions, and losing your top tackle or one of your 2 top tackles at least is never easy, and it's not going to be a plug and play situation. I mean, I think they know who the guys are going to be that step into the right and left tackles, but just huge loss right there. I mean, you needed this offensive line to really mesh and have 5 really strong guys that could move the offensive line, move to the line of scrimmage to get a good push in the run game and keep Riley Leonard upright and healthy.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the offensive line is a huge deal. This loss, and I'm not going to say a loss is ever good, but it's better to have to know who you're going to divvy up those reps to, instead of it being at the end of camp and then somebody not getting any reps, to where you have an inexperienced guy.
Yeah, it's definitely, I guess if it had to happen, you would hope it would happen maybe now or in the spring when you had time to get somebody else ready, as opposed to in the season or something like that. Especially because he's a young kid. He's a redshirt freshman, started, I think, 2 games last year. And he looked good in the bowl game that they played. He looked good. It looked like he was ready to take the next step and be a starting every game tackle for Notre Dame. And so it's a major loss, especially when you were really counting on him to be an anchor of that offensive line, at least one of the tackles. But it looks like most likely Emil Wagner, who is probably going to be the starting right tackle, might move over to left tackle and take that spot, and then have Tosh Baker potentially step in at the right tackle position. So at least you have a couple guys that were in the mix anyways to take those reps. And then there's some younger guys that'll get more reps now and get them ready as well, because having this kind of injury where there's no question he's out for the year. He's not coming back. And now you still have to go through an entire college football season and play potentially 17 games. So you're going to need depth at offensive line even more so now, because another injury to the tackle position, you could be starting a true freshman. You could be starting somebody that hasn't really played or hasn't gotten the reps. So you're definitely going to see them put a bunch of different people in that position, get reps, and get people ready to play if they have to, because just with the number of games, there's likely going to be some other type of injury. Hopefully not at offensive line, but across the team, obviously you're going to have injuries throughout the year.
Right. And when it comes to the offensive line play, it's always a war of attrition in the trench. Just trying to keep guys healthy. I've heard Kirk Barton talk about it at length, that you can never have enough offensive and defensive linemen, guys that can play. And then with the scholarship limits that are probably going to more than likely come down, it's going to be an interesting time on how to manage a roster going forward.
Yeah, I mean, that was interesting. Did you see that they actually raised the scholarship limits? They raised it to 105. So trying to figure out how to build a roster and everything like that is going to definitely change over the next few years. But yeah, when it comes to, I mean, you got to understand, you're playing, like, there's a potential that you play like 17 games. That's a full NFL season.
Right.
Guys get hurt in the NFL all the time. You have to have, I mean, the Browns last year had like 6 different starting tackles throughout the year. And that was just at the tackle position. So, I mean, you got to have depth at the offensive line and defense line position. You think about it, they're the guys out there getting hit every single play, no matter what. I mean, there's not a single play where you don't collide with somebody. So you're going to get banged up. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get injured. And so this is a big loss for the offensive line, because that takes some of your depth away, and it takes a starting caliber player away, and you might not have 4 or 5 of those. You might have only had 3 of them, and now you're down to 2 at tackle, and then you got a
Right.
bunch of young guys and developmental guys behind them. You don't know that yet. I mean, hopefully some of the younger guys that haven't had the experience get reps in practice and fall camp, and they can step in and play their role and help out when called upon. But it's going to be, I mean, it's a long season, and starting out with injuries like this, and the injury they had at linebacker with a torn ACL out for the season, already first week of fall camp, you hate to see season ending injuries for sure. Any kind of injury you don't like, but season enders where, all right, that guy's, I mean, he's still on the team, but you can't think about him anymore. You just got to hope he gets healthy and heals and recovers and can be part of the plans next year. But you still got this season to worry about. And this is a big season for Marcus Freeman. We've already talked about it at length. This is a huge make or break season for him. 3rd season as the head coach, hasn't been terrible, hasn't been bad, has been really good, but he hasn't had the type of season that he was brought in to bring to Notre Dame. So you're expected to go and play in the playoff. You're expected to go win 10 plus games, and you're already losing contributing people on defense and a starting tackle on offense. And you got question marks at quarterback with his health just historically. So, I mean, it's not starting out the way you want. I mean, there's a lot of good things coming out of camp too. Don't get me wrong. But the injury stuff is just such a worry with how long this season's going to be and the type of season it's looking like.
Right. And, with the season length and, all the things that are going on, we're not here to put you in the spin cycle like some other folks would like to lead you to believe. But, um, you know, an extra long season, couple injuries here and there, it's going to be a grind, as they say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So just a couple updates from the first week, and we'll get into kind of more of what we see this week and stuff like that later on in the week. But so far, a lot of good things coming out of camp. Wide receivers they've looked average. Nobody's really stepping up from what I've heard to take the role of that, lead guy in the receiver room, the number one option. I've heard Chris Mitchell looks good. I've heard some of the other guys have looked good. But we talked about it the one show we had. You really want to see, and again, it's only the first week of fall camp. There's still time, but you really want to see one of those receivers that you're counting on to be productive step up and kind of show, hey, I'm the number one guy, because Riley Leonard's gonna need somebody that he can trust to make a play, to go get the ball, to do what needs to be done in big moments and big games. And again, he doesn't have the chemistry with these receivers because he hasn't been throwing it to them for very long. So hopefully that increases and that builds. But yeah, it's just a pretty kind of run-of-the-mill first week. Some good things, some obviously bad things with injuries and things like that, and inconsistencies on offense specifically. Defense looks fantastic from what I've heard. Really looks like it's going to be a top unit in the country. But yeah, that's just a little update from first week of fall camp and getting ready for the season. Obviously, they're getting ready. Texas A&M week 1, big game. So you'll see it ramp up over here the next week or two, next couple weeks. Week 1, obviously, you're getting back into it. You're not in pads the whole time. You're just slowly creeping into the grind that is fall camp. So this week and then really next week is when you're going to get a lot of the big time news coming out of fall camp. And let's just pray that there's no more injuries because we don't need them. But kind of flipping sides here and talking about the future at Notre Dame, a little bit of some recruiting updates and things like that. Obviously, I said it when Notre Dame had the number 1 class in the country and everybody was going on and on about it. Settle down. It's not going to stay that way. People are going to flip. You're going to lose people, things like that. And right now Notre Dame's down to, I think, number 11 in the country, or right around there, which is still a great recruiting class. It's not a bad class. You'd like to see them finish top 10. I hope they still can. But there's one major question mark in the recruiting class right now that is picking up a lot of steam. And if this happens, you could see that number 11 ranking go down a little bit more. And then it's going to be really hard to creep into that top 10. So Obviously, the name on everybody's mind, the name that everybody's talking about in Notre Dame recruiting is none other than Deuce Knight, the stud quarterback. I've seen him ranked as high as number 4, average around number 5, 6, or 7, whatever. One of the top quarterbacks in the country, has been committed to Notre Dame since fall of 2023, and he's still committed. He's still there. I know you've been big on this. I know you've been talking to people. I know you're high on this train. But the question is he going to flip or is he not going to flip?
Well, as it was said, whenever we did that show, I'm trying to get the exact date on that. June 6th. I told you on June 6th that this was going to happen. I didn't know when it was going to happen. And I thought Ole Miss was in the lead for this. And apparently they're not, because Steve Wilfong just came out and gave the Fong bomb for Deuce Knight to go to Auburn. Everything that Hugh Freeze, I guess, I talked to a couple people. I guess when I knew it was for real, I had talked to somebody probably leading up to that week when we were off, when we took that little break to get ready for the season. I talked to somebody around that Monday or Tuesday when all the major universities were doing their glorified hot dog grilling.
Yes.
The Big Cat weekend, the grill and chill, the Friday night lights, whatever recruiting thing you wanted to call it, whatever you could call it. But when everybody was doing their big events, there was something that was sticking out that I had heard. There was some grumblings. There was that he was going to go to Auburn's and not Notre Dame's. So allegedly, from what I heard, is I guess when he showed up, that's when Hugh Freeze and the fellers down there decided to throw their hat in the ring, and they jumped in with 2 feet, and Fong just released that prediction for him to flip. And a lot of we were the outlier show that said that this was going to happen. I mean, I know, Carter, you were a little skeptical on it at first, but we were the first ones in on this, and I have a pretty good source on it. And we were the first ones in. A lot of the other shows were saying, "No, this is never going to happen. He's in with 2 feet. He is Notre Dame, Notre Dame through and through." Well, I get it. Wolfong is batting about 70%. So I mean, I don't think that there's. I don't know if Notre Dame's going to be able to pony up, because the big thing that worries me when it comes to this is, like, when it comes to the Meadows thing. I don't think NIL was a big deal in the Meadows thing, but whenever they first come out and the beat is telling you NIL was never a problem, it was never a problem. Sounds like to me, normally when it's dealing with Ohio State, whether it's Michigan, a lot of your media outlets, the people that wear those credentials, are mouthpieces for the athletic department. So, you can keep saying that NIL is not a issue and, things of that sort aren't an issue. Then why'd you have a kid committed for almost a year and then last minute he flips going into the season? Something's just not there. And I was told that, that he's got Deuce's mom on lockdown. Marcus Freeman does. And this is the whole reason why Marcus Freeman was supposed to be hired at Notre Dame, to take the recruiting to the next level. You've had, you lost the Taylor kid, you lost Meadows, you lost potentially Deuce Knight. I mean, if he ends up going to Notre Dame, I'll be the first one to eat crow. But also, don't be shocked if he commits to Notre Dame and enters the portal in the spring. That's not on the realm of possibility either. But Notre Dame, you offered how many wide receivers? 23 or 24, and the best you can do is a legacy in Plexico Burris' son. You swung and missed on everybody else. So this is something that Notre Dame fans need to look at. And we've been talking about the wide receiver position. We talked about it all spring, and everybody told us we were crazy, we were nuts. Well, 2 weeks ago, we decided to take a 3-week vacation. What's everybody else talking about? The issues at wide receiver. Can the offensive line block? Well, if you guys would have been paying attention, around springtime, we watched the spring game and told you everything that was wrong. So, and then we're almost 2 months ahead of you on the Deuce Knight stuff. So, that's my standpoint on it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I really wanted this to not be true. I'll be honest with you. I like Deuce Knight a lot. I think he's a good kid. I think he fits Notre Dame really well. I think he has an incredible skill set. I still hope that this doesn't happen, but it's looking more and more like an inevitability more so than a chance. Everything I've read recently, everything I've heard, he's not. Deuce hasn't wavered on himself. What people are concerned about is Hugh Freeze has put a full court press on this. He's gone out and said, Deuce Knight is our guy. He's gone out and he had Deuce Knight's family come to visit. And I heard Deuce Knight's father talking about it. And one of the things that really stood out to me was he said, we hadn't been able to go on visits to any of the other places except Notre Dame. And so we had never really seen the other places that were recruiting Deuce. And so they went to Auburn and they loved it. They loved Auburn. They loved Hugh Freeze. It sounds like his father really liked Hugh Freeze. And that's concerning if you're Notre Dame, because as you said, one of the major reasons Notre Dame had him locked up is because his mom loved Marcus Freeman. Well, now if your mom loves Marcus Freeman and your dad loves Hugh Freeze, who's going to win? I don't know. It depends, I guess. I don't know what your relationship with them is like, but it sounds more and more like it's going to happen. I'm sick about it. I hope it doesn't. I forget what source it was, but they had about an 84% chance that he goes to, or 86% chance that he goes to Auburn, and only a 14% chance that he goes to Notre Dame, which is not, I don't like my chances there. What he said about the visit to Auburn was interesting. It was not directly saying, but kind of what he was saying is, I like the playmakers. I like the young playmakers they have around me. I like the opportunity to play early and often, because one of the things, if he comes to Notre Dame, is he's going to have to compete with Lloyd Carr's grandson. He's going to have to compete with some of these other quarterbacks that are in here that are highly recruited quarterbacks. And I don't know Auburn's quarterback room all that well, but it sounds like he would have a better opportunity to play early at Auburn, as well as he maybe likes the young playmakers a little bit better, thinks they're a little more skilled. He might get more NIL money. It's a lot closer to home. It checks a lot of boxes that I would think you would have as an 18-year-old kid. So I don't like it. I hope it doesn't happen, but the more I hear and the more people like Wilt Fong and some of these other guys that are talking about it come out and put steam behind it, the more I think it definitely could happen, and I honestly probably will happen.
Well, Carter, I'm just glad that you have seen the light and you've came around. You've came around to my side of things. Hey, being on my side isn't always the most popular side, but when it comes to this, I was on this early, and not a lot of people were on it. A lot of people were asking, well, will he, or maybe won't he? And I stood on business and said, it's going to happen. I didn't think Auburn was going to come in late. The one thing I have noticed is a lot of these SEC programs have been on major recruits. They have been slow playing kids here recently. So do I think that this is a chess game? Yes. It's not. We're not playing checkers, and it was fun when you were the number one recruiting class in the nation, and that lead dissolves, and you lose Deuce, you might fall out of the top 20.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it'll be that significant. I think it'll definitely push them maybe out of the top 15. But yeah, this is what we've warned against. I didn't think I was really hoping it's not Deuce, but I really hope it wasn't. But I said all along that you're going to lose kids. When you have 25 kids committed or whatever they had in like April and May, that's way too early in the process to think that you're going to land and sign all those kids. And unfortunately, the ones that tend to flip are the higher ranked recruits, right? I mean, the guys that are kind of lower ranked that are, just guys to solidify your class, they don't flip as much because they're not getting as much attention and pressure from big programs, and you're Notre Dame. But when you have a top 5, top 10 quarterback committed, when you have a top corner, when you have, 2 top corners or 2 top defensive backs and Ivan Taylor and Dallas Golden, and that's another thing that I said when Dallas Golden committed. I think Deuce Knight was a lot of the glue holding this class together. And as it starts to kind of not fall apart, but as it starts to lose pieces here and there, you just hope that glue doesn't come undone and you lose somebody like Dallas Golden as well, because you lose Deuce Knight and Dallas Golden, then you're in real trouble. But I don't think that's going to happen. From everything I've heard and read, Dallas Golden seems like a pretty solid commit that I think is going to stick it out and sign with Notre Dame. But yeah, it would be a big loss if it happens. I really am hopeful it doesn't. But again, you never know with the landscape of college football. And here's the other thing: finishing second on some of these kids isn't the end of the world. You know what? Maybe he goes down to Auburn and he doesn't like it next year and he hits the transfer portal. And guess who's number 1 on his list then? Notre Dame. He wasn't going to play this year either. It's not. I mean, that's the beauty of the transfer portal and kind of the curse of the transfer portal. Even after you sign these kids in December or February, that's not the end of the road. They could transfer at any time pretty much. And so I'm not saying he's going to transfer to Notre Dame if he goes to Auburn, but I'm just saying that it's a continuous process, and if he gets to Notre Dame, that doesn't mean he's not going to transfer to Auburn, so it's not the end of the road for him, but it is looking more and more like he is going to flip his recruitment. And I believe Auburn is definitely the leader of the pack right now, with Notre Dame second and Ole Miss a pretty distant third.
Right, and a good point you brought up there. Finishing second isn't always the end of the world. Look at how it has worked out for Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes. One transfer portal, you end up with Julian Sand, Quincy Judkins, and Caleb Downs and Will Howard.
Yeah.
That's not a bad haul in the old portal.
No, absolutely not. And you still have to build your program through traditional recruiting. Obviously, that's the lifeblood still. But the portal is a great way to go out and get some players that can bolster your roster and maybe fill some needs. And so if somebody like a Dallas Golden or somebody like a Deuce Knight or a Derek Meadows goes out and ends up signing with somebody else and then doesn't like it or whatever, their coach leaves or gets fired, or they're not getting the playing time they're promised, or they don't follow through on the NIL they were promised. There's 100 different reasons why a kid enters the transfer portal. And then if you finish second, you're number 1 on their list. I promise you, they still love you. They still respect you. As long as you haven't had a coaching change and things like that, they're probably going to look at you.
Also, real quick, while we're kind of hitting the little bit over halfway point there, for everybody out there watching, if you want to join the conversation, come on over. If you're watching on Twitter, come on over to YouTube. The chat is open. Come on over, get involved. We want to hear what you guys have to say about this. But yeah, the Deuce Knight, I'm not saying that the recruiting class is falling apart. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is it may look like Buford T. Justice's squad car in Smokey and the Bandit, missing some pieces, big time. So it's I mean, the wheels haven't fell off yet, but if Deuce Knight flips, in a worst case scenario, Dallas Golden decides that he is gonna, up in, and I also I think Carter, you could use a resource at your disposal and ask around a little bit and see if Dallas Golden, if there's any smoke, or if Florida State is still recruiting him.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
And he's a talented kid, and I think he, we brought it up since the receiver class is very weak. We brought that up about maybe him playing offense.
Yeah,
And
he definitely
with
could, and
everything,
that might be part of the plan and part of why he is so solid with Notre Dame is he wants to play a little offense. He definitely has the skill set to do so. But yeah, I mean, I think it's not time to panic if he flips. Notre Dame will fill their class. They'll go out. They'll get players that are good players. They'll be fine. They may not take a quarterback this cycle. They may go out and get one that's on the board that they had that was lower than Deuce Knight. Who knows what will happen there? But their class will be fine. It's not going to be what everybody thought it might be when it was ranked number 1 in the nation, but it'll definitely be fine. I mean, I wouldn't worry too much about it.
and also to kill this discussion. Also, you never know who's going to enter the transfer portal either.
Absolutely.
And I understand why people are apt. We don't need to go get another transfer guy, but for depth wise, you might need to because Minchie and Angeli could bolt.
Absolutely.
So I think Notre Dame needs to cover all bases here, and just I'm always really, really skeptical on star rankings because you got to watch the kids play. Because how if you go back in the day and just go look at the star rankings, how many of those guys are in the NFL or even the top rated quarterbacks? If you go back on the Lead 11's website and you look at the first 10 years, you ain't ever heard of any of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that's always something to consider. And I'll give you a few names that, might be in the transfer portal at the end of this year. And they wouldn't be bad players to have. I mean, let's start in Columbus. There's going to be one quarterback that plays, maybe two, and then there's going to be three or four others that don't. And I'm just projecting here. And then they're adding Tavian St. Clair next year. So you're going to have Julian Sain, Aaron Nolan, St. Clair, Devin Brown, and Lincoln Keenholtz all looking for one spot. And Aaron Nolan and Julian Sain are the same class. Devin Brown will be, a junior redshirt at that point. And so I'm just saying there's going to be some people that are looking to get on the field sooner rather than later. And then you go down to Florida. If DJ Lagway doesn't play much this year and Billy Napier gets fired and he lost his coach that brought him there, maybe he looks to enter the transfer portal and go elsewhere and get on the field. So there's plenty of talent out there that'll be in the portal at the end of the year. So don't get too concerned about it. But
yes. So
moving on a little bit here, I want to get to kind of the big news of the day or the big news of the last week or however you want to talk about it here. And let's talk about a little something. The scandal, the big news going on right now. You've got Michigan received their letter from the NCAA with the notice of allegations, and it got leaked. And these two men have their handprints all over it. And so let's talk about it a little. I think that's what's going on. Obviously, the big news is a lot of it is facts we already knew, right? He went to the Central Michigan game. That's confirmed. Other staffers, at least 7 staffers were involved. That's confirmed. Sherrone Moore deleted 52 text messages between him and Connor Stallions on the day that the news broke that Connor Stallions was caught and that he was fired. That's confirmed. All these things have been confirmed. So the allegations that we all knew about are true. There could be more that we don't know about because it was only a draft of the letter that was leaked. But it's big news. I think Michigan wants to tell you this is nothing. This is everything we thought it was. Nothing new came out. I disagree. I was told by Michigan all for months and months and months that this was a lone wolf. Nobody else was involved. Well, this confirms other people were involved. So I think that's. I'll let you have the floor for a minute and give me your thoughts.
Well, when it comes to this whole Connor Stallions ordeal, the Michigan contingent that have been burying their heads in the sand and with scam web and everything that has gone on with this whole fiasco, at some point the chickens were going to come home to roost. So the big thing that I've always tried to maintain throughout this whole thing is let's let the evidence come out. And with this going on, this is a very serious issue. And then also you have the US integrity stuff with the gambling, because they found the gambling cookies on Matt Weiss's computer. Now let's unpack this just a little bit. None of this ever comes out if Matt Weiss doesn't get popped for his cyber crimes. Right. That's what alerted the NCAA and the FBI to this whole integrity thing, because of the gambling aspect of it. So they turned the computers over, and there's alleged things out there like Stallions took hard drives, but there's a really good clip out there that people, the Michigan fans want to bag on Barton, but Kirk, a number one guy, he has a clip that he shows that he's been showing all week when Ohio State looks at the sideline to look at the signalers when it was Corey and Keenan Bailey, before he got punched in the face by a strength and conditioning coach. They're over there doing the signs. Do you know what the whole Michigan sideline does? They all stop and look at Ohio State's sideline, and Stallions is flipping through a binder and then whispers something into the ear, and then they all point at the air like this. There's like 30 of them, and Denard Robinson's one of them. Back before he decided to crash his car in a drunken stupor, but they're all doing this, pointing at the sky and let everybody knew it was a pass. And then there's another clip that I'm sure if I asked Kirk, he would probably let me show it, or let us show it. That I believe it's against Penn State. Penn State is in a 3 tight end look. Okay. So to me, that tells me it's a run, and it's in the goal line. Most likely it's a run. You know what they do? They play 2 high safeties instead of 1 high. And, for all the people that are out there saying, oh, but you still got to stop it. It's easy to know if it's a run right or a run left. And if they're saying that they didn't know that people were on it, maybe some of the kids were in on it, but maybe some of them weren't. But I think it was a whole organized operation. And Jim Harbaugh is full of crap. He can say what he wants. He's a sly fox. He's not dumb, because there is no way in the world whenever. We'll take this into a point. They wanted to talk today. There were some Michigan fans out there in the space that I had listened into. They wanted to talk today about, Kirk Barton stole signs from Michigan at the stadium. Yeah, you can do it when you're playing the other team if you have binoculars and know what you're looking for. This is a totally different. Picking signs is not illegal. Sending somebody to advance scout and record in the stands is illegal. How do you explain the tickets? How do you explain the travel? Who funded this? If this is a big issue, and for the people out there saying that it's not an issue and that nothing's going to happen, okay, maybe you keep your daddy, maybe not, but who knows what the NCAA does to you, and who knows what else they find. And also the other thing too, Michigan fans, you need to look and see who's the rat. Who is telling, because the NCAA is looking, and by any good investigation, you have to be kind of led to that place. That's how big cases are broke, by informants. So you got somebody ratting on you. And, you look at a couple of the coaches that were fired or some ex-coaches, and, I'm not to point any fingers at anybody, but might be a fellow coach in the Big Ten that might have an axe to grind.
Right. Yep. No, I agree. I agree completely. And you brought up Jim Harbaugh and his comments. So let's hear that real quick.
Yeah, I do have a comment on that. Never lie, never cheat, never steal. I was raised with that lesson. I have raised my family on that lesson. I have preached that lesson to the teams that I've coached. No one's perfect. If you stumble, you apologize, and you make it right. Today, I do not apologize. I did not participate, was not aware, nor complicit in those said allegations. So for me, it's back to work and attacking with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
I just have one question. Throw this comment up here. I just want to make one statement. So appreciate you here, Jason. Also, so if you didn't participate, what was Connor Stallion standing behind you for with a binder talking to the head football coach during the biggest game of the year? What was he telling you? Because I can tell you this much. I've never been on a college sideline. Do you think, let's say, do you think Barton ever was going to talk to like Luke Fickell when Luke's calling defense? Yeah, I doubt it. Luke will tear your face off. or Vrabel when he's trying to coach the backers, tear your face off.
I mean, somewhat, yeah. I mean, interns talk to position coaches, talk to coordinators sometimes. I won't be that the end all be all. I mean, not normally on the sideline standing next to him while plays going on. Usually they're off to the benches with him. But the thing is, man, there's no way he had no idea what was going on. He may not have known the details of how they were getting the signs or how exactly the operation worked. But I've been around coaches my whole life. There's nobody that's ever been 100% correct ever. And so either you hired the smartest guy ever, and he just is always able to steal the signs and be right, which has never happened, or something's going on, and you definitely had knowledge of it. So to sit there and say, my morals, my values are to don't lie, don't cheat, and if you stumble, apologize, and I'm not here to apologize because I had nothing to do with it. It's like, dude, you definitely had something to do with it. And even if you didn't, that doesn't matter. You're supposed to have institutional control over your program to not allow things like this to happen. That's your job. That's your job as the CEO of a program, is to make sure nobody is doing things that are illegal. That's it. And if you do something and you get caught, you got to be punished for it. So he might never be punished because he's in the NFL. They could still hit him with a show cause, and the NFL could decide to enforce it or something like that. I mean, that's been historically accurate that's happened. But the end of the day, it's all bullshit. And the best part about it is everybody got out of there who was involved in it. They all went to the NFL to try to get out of there. And I have one more clip, because here's what Jim Harbaugh said to Sherrone Moore when Sherrone tried to get out.
Oh, they expect one of us in the wreckage, brother. Oh, they expect one of us in the.
If you've ever seen Dark Knight Rises, the guy's trying to get off the plane, and he goes, "No, they expect one of us in the wreckage, brother." And that's what Jim Harbaugh said to Sherrone Moore. Said, "Dude, I'm sorry, I got to sacrifice you." And it's gonna. I don't care what you think, Michigan fans. Bottom line is, you can tell me everybody cheats. You can tell me everybody steals signs. If you do it in game, it's legal. Yes, that's all accurate. But if you go scout other teams' games, if you go send people in person, it is no longer legal. And that's what you did. And then you lied about it. You hid it. You didn't cooperate with the investigation. You didn't provide any evidence saying it was false. I'm sorry. You're going to get hit with it. And, they recovered the 52 text messages from Sherrone Moore that we don't know what was on that. It might be nothing. It might have just been like, hey, hope you have a good day. I don't know. Seems kind of weird, but it's just, I don't know what you say at this point. Michigan fans are so delusional about this. And I'm not saying they're going to vacate your national championship, but everything I've heard says that you're going to be hit with a 1 to 2 year postseason ban. Now, fun little statistic for you. The NCAA has leveled out 156 postseason penalties in the history of the NCAA. Do you know how many times the 156 postseason bans didn't also include vacating wins?
I bet their percentage is really high.
Zero times. So 100% of the time that they hand out a postseason ban, they also vacate wins. I'm not saying they're going to vacate the national championship. I'm not saying they're going to vacate 3 years of wins, but you're going to lose some wins here. It's going to happen. You're going to get a postseason ban. And if any evidence that is out there that they find implicates Sherrone Moore, he's going to get a show cause. And that's just how it goes.
And if he gets a show cause, because they would essentially terminate him for just cause, right? So his contract would be void. It would be null and void. So
they could, yeah, or they could let him serve the show cause and keep him. And then
that's not out of the realm of possibility on the people we're talking about here.
Yeah, they could say, I don't believe he had anything to do with it. We're going to fight it. He'll serve his show cause this season. If they're smart, if he does get a 1 year show cause and they get a 1 year postseason ban and they have to vacate whatever 2021 and 2022, but they could get to keep 2023, then you accept it. You let Sherrone Moore serve his 1 year show cause this year. You elevate Tony Alford to interim head coach for the year. And you accept the postseason ban and you just chalk this year up. I'm telling you, that's what I would do. Take it. Otherwise, you're going to do what Gene Smith did. You're going to fight it. You're not going to take the postseason ban. You're going to waste a year anyways, because they're not going to be a national championship contender this year. And then you're going to go out and next year when you get these recruits in, because they're recruiting well now, you're going to have a postseason ban because you fought it. And then when you actually could compete for a national title, like a la 2012 Ohio State that went 12-0 and couldn't play in the Natty because of Gene Smith, then you're going to have to serve that postseason ban. And then you're going to start losing recruits that are committed to you right now, because if they get a 2 year postseason ban, you mean I'm going to go there for 2 years and I can't even play in the playoffs?
Right. And also, but hey, Ohio State they got to play in the Sugar Bowl. Gene got him the Sugar
in 2011. No. 2011, they were 6-6. They played in some bullshit bowl game that they shouldn't have ever played in.
Oh yeah, that is right. But it was 2010.
Yeah. 2010. Yeah, 2010. They got because they were still they didn't know what the sanctions were going to be. Yeah, hit the likes. Thank you, Jason. But yeah, 2010 they didn't know what it was going to be. 2011 they could have self-imposed the bowl ban before the NCAA officially handed it out, and they would have missed the Music City Bowl or some dumb shit. And then 2012, they would have been bowl eligible. They would have played Notre Dame for the national championship. They would have gone 13-0. Sorry, Notre Dame fans. They would have beat you. I love Notre Dame, but Notre Dame got waxed in that game anyways. So
yeah,
I don't see a way forward for Michigan without penalties at this point. I know Michigan fans have been waiting for the hammer to drop for 8 months, 12 months, whatever. And it looks like it's starting to drop.
Well, when it comes down to all of the notice of allegations, they have to be led. This is just my belief. They have to be led to they've got to be led to the smoking gun. Somebody is feeding them information. I'm not saying it's a Michigan employee, but there was only a handful of people that had that letter.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to some people behind the scenes, and I've heard some people talk, and some things that are way up the food chain that it's not the NCAA leaking this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for sure that it's not, but I doubt it. So somebody's leaking it, and that's fine. I mean, I'd be worried about that if I was Sherrone Moore. Like, you don't want to have leaks in your program. But the biggest thing is they obviously have enough evidence already to go off of it. And that's not even including things like the 7 or 10 laptops that had the hard drives removed, which is interesting. Did they just not use those hard drives? Or, I mean, did they just not use those laptops anymore? Did they have 10 staffers that went to the IT department like, hey, I need a new laptop, and they just didn't say anything about it? Because with a university laptop, I mean, depending on the security, the protocols, universities have a whole lot of IT security and things like that to protect sensitive information. You can't just swap out a hard drive. Like, the IT department would have to do it. And
technically, isn't that state property? Because Michigan's a public university, so you still property from it's still property from the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it could be, but all that said, I mean, the more that comes out, and obviously Michigan fans like to say there wasn't a lot of new information. You're right. But guess what? We've been saying this all along without the supporting allegations from the NCAA. So now we have the NCAA actually saying this is a fact, this is a fact, this is a fact. So all the allegations that everybody's been talking about for the past 12 months are facts now. There's nothing, you can't dispute it. The only thing that you can dispute is whether Jim Harbaugh knew, or Sherrone Moore, if there's no direct link, which we still don't know that. There's some people say that they did, some people say they didn't. The problem is with the NCAA, it's not like being on trial. You're not innocent until proven guilty with the NCAA. They don't have to follow that rule. And if they come to you with allegations like they just did, you have to prove these allegations are false. Otherwise, they can hand out a punishment and say, you couldn't prove they're false. That means we're going to believe they're true because we have supporting evidence that says they might be. So in that case, if you're not willing to cooperate with the investigation, which you haven't been willing to do since the jump, then they can just hand out a punishment. It's up to you to say, no, we didn't do this. Here's all the evidence that proves they had nothing to do with it.
Right. And the biggest thing is that if you could just be like, hey, we cheated and we did it. And, and this will be the last thing, and then we'll close up shop because it is now 8:30.
Yep.
Closing in on that hour mark. I guess my final thoughts are when this whole thing came out, Michigan's president tweeted, bet. If we were going to get a temporary restraining order, we were going to do this, we were going to fight it. And then you know what they did? They showed you the Big Ten, and Tony Petitti showed you the evidence, and what'd you do? You're like, yeah, we're not gonna do that, because the biggest thing is that if I'm the University of Michigan, I want this to be a negotiated settlement, and I would want everything that is involved in this investigation to be sealed so it doesn't get out to the public to know what really went on. And if you do try to fight it in court, your biggest enemy is going to be that thing called discovery. And I don't think the University of Michigan wants to go to discovery. You can try your hand at it and say, well, this person knew this or that person knew that. You don't delete text messages. You don't take hard drives unless you're guilty. And you know what, Michigan fans? You can get mad. You can you screenshot and tweet pictures. Do whatever you want. It doesn't change the fact that you cheated. And you guys they cheated. Harbaugh knew, Sherrone Moore knew, and that's why, if you go back and watch his press conferences, that's why Sherrone Moore looked like he was a lunch lady serving up sloppy joes and didn't want to be there because he knows. And he threw he's a young guy, 38 years old, threw his whole coaching career away because of what? You fell on the sword for Jim Harbaugh? Where's Jim Harbaugh at whenever you're going to need a job? Maybe he'll get you in the NFL. Maybe somebody will feel sorry for you. But I can tell you this much. Anybody that gets slapped with a show cause, I wouldn't want them around my organization or program. Go ahead, Carter.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I think you saw it with the Penn State game when they were going to fight it with the temporary restraining order. Big Ten came to them, showed them the evidence. They put their tail between the legs, took the suspension, hoping that would be the end of it. Same thing's going to happen here. You're hearing all the rumblings from Michigan fans and from the university that they're going to appeal it. They're going to fight this tooth and nail. And then when they get the evidence, when they have everything spelled out, they're going to go to the NCAA and say, okay, what would you punish us? NCAA is going to say, this is what we're thinking. They'll say, what if we do a 1 year self-imposed postseason ban? We vacate the 21-22 seasons, and that's it. And we'll self-impose it right now. We don't have to go through an appeals process, anything like that. We'll self-impose it. NCAA will probably go, okay, that's sufficient. And then that's the end of it. They don't go to a bowl game this year. They don't go to the playoffs. They don't keep their wins from those seasons, which who cares? They won the games they won. Everybody knows it. They don't have to vacate the natty, which, again, even if they do, who cares? We know who won the 2023 national championship, right? We know Michigan went 15-0. Now, you're not going to get to hang the banner. You're not going to get to keep all those cool rings. Well, you might get to keep the rings. I don't know. But anyways, you go and you do that. You self-impose it, and you put this whole thing behind it. Because if it does go further, if they do appeal it, you're going to lose. You're going to lose the appeal. They might go for a 2-year postseason ban, which starts in 2025. So then you're screwed for the 25-26 and 26-27 season. And that's going to hurt recruiting. Once they see that, it's going to be the same thing that happened with the end of the year suspension. Same exact thing. So just be prepared for it. Take your medicine. Good job. You guys got a natty out of it that you might get to keep.
All right. With that being said, I guess we'll wrap up for tonight. Probably catch us twice a week on here, 7:30 Monday and Wednesday nights. Like to try to go for an hour, but if you guys can before we get out of here, please hit the like and subscribe. Be a friend, tell a friend, hit the share it with your group chat. You got some guys that are into college football. We normally cover the Big Ten, and so just send it around if you can. We do like to talk some Ohio State, but predominantly we do a lot of Notre Dame. I live in Northeast Indiana. Carter lives in Columbus. So that's what it is. And follow us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. All the links are in the bios, and be looking for some micro content coming from us. But with that being said, everybody have a good night.
Have a good night, y'all.